that his career and his integrity and his, has been challenged. He has dedicated 20 years to the city and to the citizens of Rochester, and feels that, the events that have happened, that the events that have happened were not done in a way that, could have been handled differently. But, he didn't in any way try to cover this up.
Hey guys, how are you? I hope you had a wonderful Labor Day weekend. So much happened, and there is so much I can't wait to talk about. But first, we're going to talk about Rochester. That video that I just showed you came out of Rochester, New York, and that was the mayor of Rochester announcing to the city council members via Zoom that the entire police command team is going into early retirement, and she actually just found that out right before she got on that call. And you can see the faces, or if you saw the faces of some of them, this did not appear to be good news to them, which is very ironic because this was one of the demands of the protesters. So let's backtrack a little bit on what's going on. So we'll talk about how all this started, and then I want to give you the official statement by Rochester Police Department, why they resigned, because this is really interesting. And then I'm going to show you how the media will twist and turn things to sort of go with their narrative. There was a really interesting podcast on NPR, and I'm going to play it for you a little bit, that made this seem like it was a huge win. And so we're going to listen to that and then sort of talk about that too. So first, let's backtrack. This all started because of a man named Daniel Prude. Cops were called out in Rochester, New York on a phone call that there was a naked man who was high and belligerent and sort of out of control. The man that called the cops was Daniel Prude's brother. The cops came out to the scene. It was nighttime. There looked like there was light snow falling in the middle of March. And you see Daniel sort of running around naked, saying kind of nonsensical things. At one point, they do get him subdued a little bit. He's on the ground in handcuffs. At this point, he's spitting on officers, saying he has coronavirus. So officers put a spit guard or a spit sack on top of him, which is designed to allow you to breathe. It doesn't restrict air at all, but it will keep you from being able to spit on officers or anyone for that nature. So he started to become a little bit more combative when he was on the ground, when they were trying to, I think, get him up or get him in the car. And at that point, police restrained him a little bit, and that's when you can start to hear him sort of choke, or you hear choking sounds come out. Cops see if he's okay. He's unresponsive. They call the ambulance. He dies in the hospital 7 days later. 7 days later, his cause of death is asphyxiation. Now, the big controversy about this is, of course, he is a black man, so people are saying this is racially motivated. They're saying police used excessive force on him. Although some people are saying that he died because he did throw up when he was in that sack. He threw up, and they're saying he choked on his vomit. Other people are saying he could have possibly died from an overdose of PCP, but that is obviously under investigation. We don't know. That's still being decided and investigated. But the point of this is just to give you a background. So this happened, and the chief of police has also been very criticized, and the protests that have erupted in the wake of this in Rochester, one of their main things is they want the police chief to resign. They also want the mayor to resign, which is the woman that we saw in that video before. So that's pretty much what's been happening. And if you want to see a little bit of footage from some of these protests, these protests they've been a little weird to me and a little different than some of the ones we've seen. We've seen people in the streets accosting people that are just out eating dinner, yelling at them because they're white and they're enjoying their white privilege and things of that nature. Here's a little piece of performance protesting that they did.
How are you?
You're getting very creative in their tactics, and obviously they were honoring Daniel. They were naked and had the spit sack on their faces. So now I want to play for you this piece that was on NPR this morning discussing this. So here it is. NPR up first.
Development for Rochester that the police chief and top subordinates would all step aside.
Yeah, this is big. Laurent Singletary had insisted repeatedly he'd stay the course, refusing to step down. He's local, a black man who grew up in Rochester. But, after this horrific video was released last week of Daniel Prude lying naked on the pavement, a hood over his head, surrounded by officers, these demonstrations erupted. People on the street insisting Singletary be held accountable for Prude's death. And the chief's departure was one of their key demands. He did finally bow to that pressure yesterday. Ashley Gant, one of the protest organizers, spoke last night calling this a victory.
I want you to understand that these things don't happen because people are being good people or because they think it's the right thing to do. These things are happening because of you, because of people power, because we're out here every night putting our foot on their necks.
That was NPR's sort of take on what happened and how they presented it. Now I want to read to you, and this is Chief Laurent Singletary. This is the chief of police who just announced that he's retiring, and these are his words. This is his official statement that he released regarding the matter. For the past 2 decades, I have served this community with honor, pride, and the highest integrity. As a man of integrity, I will not sit by idly while outside entities attempt to destroy my character. The events over the past week are an attempt to destroy my character and the integrity. The members of the Rochester Police Department and the greater Rochester community know my reputation and know what I stand for. The mischaracterization and the politicization of the actions that I took after being informed of Mr. Prude's death are not based on facts, and this is not what I stand for. It has been my extreme honor to serve and lead with the most dedicated law enforcement professionals in the country. So we've been seeing this sort of across the country. And I guess if you were a protester, this might seem as though it's a huge win to you. But police officers are going out, they're being demonized by the media, they're being demonized and physically attacked by people on the street. And then their own city council, their own elected officials, their own support team, the ones that are supposed to support them, are not supporting them, and they're just going along with the narrative to appease the mob or to appease what they think the public wants. And what's a shame in a lot of these cities, I know this for LA alone, a lot of the protesters don't actually live there. This was true in Kenosha, this was true in DC, in LA. We've had protests the past few days. Our police officers say a lot of the people they're arresting are not from there, and the residents, in fact, are getting sick and tired of all the protesters. So these are outside people, maybe that don't even live in the community, that are demanding these people step down. He didn't step down to appease the protesters. He stepped down because he wasn't getting support from his team in the midst of all this demonization and mischaracterization. We don't have all the information before we jump to conclusions, and this is said to be racially motivated, yet the black chief of police is resigning and is retiring, and they're also calling for the retirement of the mayor that you just saw in that video, who's a black woman. This happened in Seattle, Washington. Carmen Best, who served Seattle for many years, resigned because of the continued disrespect and the vote to defund the police by the mostly white city council, who never once asked her what her ideas to defund or to reimagine the budget for the police department would have been. And the sad thing is, this is going to turn out to hurt the very people that are calling for these things. You're defunding police and demonizing them, and it's going to cause cops to make even poorer decisions. It's going to cause people to resist arrest even more. And a big argument, and one that I continually make for police officers, is that they need more funding for better training. Look at Jacob Blake, for instance. Wouldn't that have been great if they could have maybe shot him 1 time instead of 7 times in a place that wouldn't have paralyzed him? Or if they could have used other methods? That requires more training, which requires more money. And the less we take, or the more funding we take away from these police officers, the less confident they're going to be out on the street. We're taking things away from the people that are supposed to be keeping us safe and emboldening criminals. I still haven't heard on a national level or on mainstream media, I have not once heard compliance be a part of the conversation. We can argue that cops need to do better, but we also have to argue that people need to comply. In every one of these instances, these men who have the cops called on them, in every single one of these instances, they have been combative and they have not complied with officers. So that's my opinion on that. Let me know what you guys think. I have more coming out for you. Thank you for watching. Bye.